Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode 51. We're off to a great start. We're also off to the finish line. Great start being Gladys Carter has leveled up. Our head of aerodynamics is now in 82 overall. And our race engineer, Palumbo, is now a 43 overall, her second level up already. So she is leveling up faster than the others, though obviously still quite bad. She's got a long ways to go. But at the same time, while she has not leveled up to beyond her 85, Anna Barnard has, as we've been focusing on innovation, which is the training processes, training nearly maximized, and processes, has tipped over to a 90, which is now saving a percentage point daily. Daily saves a percentage point. Race weekends, so that's 3% every weekend that we save. 3 days, 1 percentage point each day. Also, training sessions are less impactful as now they don't push it up quite as much as before, and therefore we're able to start getting in a whole lot more training and a whole lot less rest for the pit crew to see development, which is fantastic. Now, that where they're at, well, okay, it's not the greatest. For the coming month, I've got them at a level 0, no gains or losses, technically the tiniest bit of a negative through at least one of these, like say 1/10 of a point on one of them dropping down. But over the course of the month, you can see we're going to gain 2 100ths on our estimated pit stop time over the course of the month. So making gains, but nothing fantastic. And we're starting the month with very low fatigue. Just 2 races to navigate, and that's a whole lot of gym training. But you can see as we go through, after a couple days of rest after each race, we're able to train daily and twice after a little bit every other day, all the way through the end of the month. And that's gym training, not your run-of-the-mill, easier to do, less tiring pit crew specific attribute training. So this is good. We're making them stronger and faster in general, and we're coming out of the month at 2% fatigue. Into December, where there's going to be no races, and we'll have another whole month of training where we can push things in the direction that we want to push things. I don't necessarily want to push up the pit crew attributes anymore this season, because we're going to take a loss at the end of December. For January, then you can push to try to get those back to recover those. For now, I'm kind of pretty content with the pit crew attributes remaining stable. Maybe getting 1 more point of, say, used tires off and wheel gun just to push them up to a 75, get them that little bit closer. But focusing primarily on gym time and that estimated pit stop time, which, yes, we'll lose a chunk of that starting the new season, but only a chunk. And we want to retain as much of that as possible. So I'm really happy with where we're at. Her pushing that 1 more level means a whole lot more training between these last 2 months of the calendar year and the first months of the next calendar year before we get to that first race. It's going to make a pretty big impact, I think, long term. It's got to be at least 1 to 2 extra sessions a month, which is definitely impactful. And while we do approach the end, this has been a good start to the episode, like I said. And Sargent picks up a +2 in control, so he's now at an 89 there, making him that much better. But of course, the ones that matter, he's only got 2 races to go for us. The ones that matter are Flourish. She has a +2 in braking, which is fantastic. Entering the corners, she's going to be stronger, harder for people to overtake her entering corners, and +1 to overtaking for her, making it possible to get ahead of those Haases and those Alfa Romeos who she finds herself racing with these days. And meanwhile, Tanaka continues to make significant gains over everybody else. +1 to cornering, +2 to braking, +2 to control. 5 points, all for pace. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Her cornering is still atrocious, but with braking at a 70, like, that's her first manageable, acceptable stat. Her first attribute that you're like, okay, we can see her in the seat entering corners, right? A 70 in braking is better than Flourish by 7, who just gained a +2 there. So she is strong in braking. She's strong entering the corner. Control at a 64, well, it's not an 85, it's not an 89, it's got a ways to go, but that's just about almost tolerable levels for the car. But that cornering, the smoothness have got to go way, way up before she's ever going to take a seat. In theory, we've got maybe one more year before we're going to expect her to do that, unless one of the other females in the pool finds themselves significantly above Tanaka. She was the first one eligible. That doesn't mean she's going to necessarily be the best, but we'll compare her with the others in time.
Welcome to the Silver State of Nevada for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Here we are in the entertainment capital of the world as Formula One prepares to take over the Las Vegas Strip. As night falls, the stars will be coming out, and we're in for a spectacular show, both on and off the track. Formula One's highest speed street circuit promises incredible action up and down the Las Vegas Strip. Racing at night means track temperatures will be lower, so data from free practice 2 could be crucial to managing both qualifying and the Grand Prix.
There's only about 6 cars in the entire grid not carrying penalties here for the Vegas race. That's huge, as Logan Sargent, who qualified P5, we don't know for sure depending on the penalties here, may be starting on pole. Florsch, meanwhile, makes Q2 for, second time all season? And, again, with a wide number of penalties, could be starting well inside of the top 10. Could be. No guarantees, especially for her. Sargent, a bit further up, has a better chance of moving into a very strong spot. But, wow. But are we going to have the pace? There's a lot of new stuff out there. Logan Sargent had okay parts last time out, but they've got to hold out for these last 2 races. They're not in terrible shape. This is not like the few races ago where we really, really nerfed things for a couple races in a row on really bad parts. They're much better than that. They'll make it through these last 2 races. They're not in great shape anymore, and we still have a number of nerfed parts. In fact, we had some parts that didn't make it out of the last race, either through contact or just wear and tear, and Logan Sargent has dropped down on a couple of parts, so he's been nerfed unintentionally a little bit further. Might not be a bad thing. He's probably going to start from the front, but has a good chance of going backwards, and there's no McLarens in the top 10 at all. In fact, Magnussen is well to the back, and Norris, with no penalties whatsoever, did not make it out of Q1. So McLarens really do not have the pace here, or Norris has just such a weak something or other under the hood that's got him in this situation that has him towards the back. Speaking of situation, Florsch, last time we put brand new everything on. But if you remember, during the sprint race, she got shunted pretty hard by Gio. And then again during the race, there was another minor incident, and she went into the wall, front end. But between one of those incidents, and they both destroyed front wings, between one of those incidents, her gearbox, her brand new gearbox, got pretty well trashed, and it's already down to 55%. So she's got 2 gearboxes for 2 races that are 50 to 60% is all. Gearbox is not great, but the engine and ERS are still in good shape, and we've already seen the benefit of that here, where she's definitely higher up the grid.
The city of Las Vegas is abuzz with excitement as our race draws ever closer. And as we look to Logan Sargent, you can see the focus and concentration.
They've got a fantastic opportunity starting on pole, but can they carry it through to the end?
So let's see what today has in store, shall we? The atmosphere is electric here for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
First ever pole, and Florsch starts from P10. But here's the thing about it, as the Ferrari already gets off the line ahead of us, and we drop to P2, even though he's on the mediums and we're on the softs. One, Sargent does not have the kind of ratings that Leclerc has when it comes to getting off the line to reactions. So faster reactions from Leclerc naturally gives him a leg up. But one would expect with 14 cars having penalties that it's going to knock them a bit back. Normally, if you take multiple penalties, you're going to drop back quite a few positions, and it's going to be harder to move up. But when 14 cars are taking penalties, the penalty itself is less severe. You're not dropping back as far. All those penalties, Florsh only got to P10. She was only up about 3 spots. So we're talking one component for many drivers. One component only. And not huge drops to the back of the grid. But there's drivers, there's pilots all over this grid with new components. Sargent does not have that. So we are looking at a scenario as we drive down the strip here for the first time. We are looking at a scenario where even though both drivers have been bumped up the grid, in all likelihood, we are looking at a scenario where they are going to go backwards. We can expect both of them to go backwards over the course of this race, because those that have picked up the penalties, and they are numerous, aren't as far back as one would think. And this is a track where overtaking can occur. Overheating already early on lap 2, but it is a very lengthy track. So it's actually time to really back off and try to get the temperature under control before these soft tires have some real issues. So it's very early on lap 2, very early to be doing this, but we've got to get this car under control. For the moment, Leclerc, Sargent, and Verstappen pulling away a bit from Sainz, who leads up the next train. Florsh all over the back of Albon, of all cars. Surprising to see an Alfa Romeo that high when they have not scored a single point all season. But again, penalties up and down the grid has changed things. As for Sargent, we get overtaken into turn 1 and drop to P3. DRS enabled. It's going to help us keep up with them, but we've got to get the temperature under control sooner rather than later, and it's just starting to get there. So I think we can drop to standard now and hope that the rest of the temperature can occur naturally here. Temperature drop, Florsh down to P12. Russell starting to make his way through the grid, overtaking Florsh and Albon and Norris in the last little bit. Florsh got a big run there down the strip and moved up multiple spots. She had some tremendous momentum there. And the top 3 have pulled away quite a bit now. 4 seconds to Sainz. Could we be heading to our 5th podium of the year? By the way, the goal was to set 6 podiums in 1 year, but that's not until 2029, which is still some years off. We don't need to be setting that this year. I definitely don't want to be setting that when we are supposed to be direct rivals with Norris, and Mission McLaren is still ongoing. We've got 2 races to let them beat us with, what, a 2-point advantage, is it? This is not looking good for that. Florsh back up into the points. She's 10th. Sargent is 3rd, and no McLarens are set to score any points whatsoever. So this could be absolutely devastating for Mission McLaren, especially the way the top 3 are pulling away from the others. As Stroll, another fast car, starting to make his way up through the grid, puts us P11. Norris is down to P14. Fueling, we only underfueled by a single lap, but here we are at 2 kilograms, and it seems to be making absolutely no progress whatsoever. Sargent has now dropped off from the front too, a full 4 seconds back already as we enter the pit window. And we're already down to 38%, by the way. We're a point or 2 below where we're supposed to be. I've already changed the strategy to pit a little bit earlier. We're supposed to be lap 21. I changed it to lap 20. And I see that what the hards would do and how long they would last versus the softs dropping off. And yeah, we're definitely at risk here of having to pit 1 lap earlier. It might have to be lap 19. It's only lap 17 right now. Still fairly early in lap 17, and they're both at 36. And cars are pitting already, so we're not the only ones with the idea of, hey, maybe it's time. 32% starting lap 19, and yes, it's going to be time, I think. 1 lap earlier than expected. It's a long lap. We need to pit now, so 1 lap earlier. Puts the hards under stress a little bit, but it is. Don't want to risk the puncture, though the punctures tend to not occur until you're below about 20%. But still, anything under 30, that risk increases. But they're already both headed down. Sargent heading to the final corner, enters pit road. From P2 for the time being, but was P3 on track. On the hards, 2.674. Not a great stop, but a clean stop. And Flourish, 2.507. Definitely better. Still not a great stop. Flourish comes back out slowly. Sargent is P14 for the moment. Flourish P19 for the moment. And we'll let the tires come up naturally. You can already see that overheating was an issue. We've gained 0.2 in the last 5 laps, and we've got 30 laps to go. So of that, you can expect 1.2 kilograms of recovery, which leaves us about 0.6, which should be quick and easy to do. Just a couple, 2 or 3 laps of lifted coast should get us there over that mark. And here comes a whole big set of cars that made it that 1 lap further. Sargent already back up to P11, and Flourish, meanwhile, comes around that final corner, and she's P18 for the time being. Very much in the mix, ahead of both of the Haas cars for now. Back up with Sargent all over the back of Maloney, and Maloney has not pit yet. Of those that have pit, we are second. But Verstappen is way up the road. 5th place while we sit P11. So we really dropped off. And even with DRS here, while we get all over the back of Maloney, we're not able to make an overtake. We looked in, we looked out, we looked in again, and never did complete the overtake. And you can see just how much time, how much ground was lost there, as Maloney still does not pit, and Tsunoda just goes right on past us. Tsunoda was freaking miles behind us. In reality, it was about 4 or 5 seconds. But Maloney was that slow that Tsunoda comes right up on us, and we have a crash at Sainz.
So let's take a look at the replay.
There goes Red Bull's
Let's have a
race,
look then at turn
just
6.
behind us.
And
Oh,
unable to do
just hits the
anything
wall.
about that crash.
Now that should
their
be a
confidence will have
suspension
taken a hit
broken
with that.
type out of the race situation, but we're just seeing local yellows, and Sainz is still racing. He's just down to 42%, so somehow he just destroyed that compound, but that's ruining Red Bull's chances of getting back into the constructors. They still had a small chance. The drivers was done with Verstappen taking it, but it was Ferrari who was looking likely to win the constructors. Sargent still unable to get around Maloney. Push on, get that overtake done, because he's still out there, still going on those mediums, and we finally do overtake him. He still does not dive off into the pits, so it's a good thing we completed that overtake. Now back up to P6, virtual 3rd with 3 guys on the medium still out there. Maloney is the 4th one, and Sainz is out of the race. He has retired the car. He made it back to pit road, but has retired the car. Flourish is P15 with just 4 cars left running. Maloney might be behind Flourish. We'll see. Zhou might be behind Flourish. I don't think Leclerc or Stroll will be, so maybe a virtual P13 for Flourish after all of this. And everybody's on hards trying to go to the end. Sargent has caught back up to Tsunoda, and here goes Leclerc and Stroll into the pits. And we come out ahead of the Aston Martin, behind Leclerc. So that time we lost behind Maloney was much more than the time loss of Leclerc continuing on mediums that much longer. So no undercut for him, but Verstappen undercut worked beautifully. He came out ahead. We came out behind, couldn't overtake, and we lost substantial time. And we find ourselves overheating a little bit, and down just the 1 spot, though, to P4. And that was an overtake on track. Remember, Tsunoda was many seconds behind, came flying up and just drove right past us. Huge speed difference. Meanwhile, we were stuck driving slower and just could not turn that situation into an overtake, even though we had a substantial speed advantage. We just couldn't make the overtake happen, and sat. And Tsunoda just flew on by with a crazy speed advantage at the time that he came up on us. So from 4th and 14th, we were at the halfway point of this race. Now Stroll also joining the mix, Pourchaire joining the mix. It can be anywhere from P3 to P7. Now Bottas, Gasly coming up on it. You can go anywhere from P3 to P9 over a number of laps. Meanwhile, Florsch is in some clean air, just running comfortably in P14. Surprisingly, the Alfa Romeos remain in contention today for the moment, battling around P11 and 12 for Albon and 13 for Zhou. De Vries has slowly caught up to Florsch. Mercedes way at the back today, which is really surprising. And Maloney, who went too long on those mediums, ends up well off the back of the grid. We knew his pace was really bad there. And again, that's what hurt Sargent, but in a good way for us. Lap 40. Let's go ahead and start conserving. We need to go backwards anyway if we're going to have any chance for McLaren, where Norris sits P10 6 seconds off. So if we finish 9th and he finishes 10th, there's still a chance in that last race. Ocon has caught up to Florsch. Got around her momentarily, but she gets back around. 7-second gap ahead of her, so she's not going forward at all. P14 is all we can hope for today. Sargent, we're going to stay, let's... Ooh, hello, ERS battle assist. Overtake aggression, rarely defend, avoid high-risk curbs, dive in clean air. Let's throw it all on there. 3 laps to go. We are trying to nerf Sargent. He's down to P8. And going backwards, Gasly is 5 seconds behind. I'm not sure we're going to get there, but we have already successfully taken Sargent out of the battle ahead as necessary. Florsch, go ahead, go balanced. Sargent going backwards real fast. Gasly coming up on us, but I'm not sure they're going to get there in time. Down to 2.8 seconds from 5, was it? Or was it 3.5? There we go. Gasly within a second. With DRS. Goes up the outside. Takes the position. We dropped to P9. 8 seconds ahead of Norris, but only 1 point gained on McLaren today. Considering how things started and how things were going, where we were sitting in P4 there for quite a while, it was looking very likely that we were headed for a 3-4-5, but we nerfed ourselves enough in the final laps to drop to P9 successfully to give ourselves a chance with Mission McLaren on the final day. But McLaren's going to have to do better than they did. I mean, Florsch is just behind Magnussen here as she heads for the finish and takes P14. That's good. One last turn to go.
Low oil pack. Copy.
Drained her battery just before the finish line. That was good.
Flag is out.
Good run from her in that final stretch to hold off Ocon. 38-point advantage and a 43-point maximum, well, 44 fastest lap, 44-point maximum score available to a team. The Constructors has been settled today. Ferrari wins the Constructors. Max Verstappen wins the Drivers' Championship. There's nothing left to race for in the final race except for our battle. Everything else is decided now, except between us and, wow, 10 more points for AlphaTauri today. Between us and McLaren, that's the last battle that is yet to be decided unless Haas can overtake Alfa Romeo for 9th. But we are talking about a 4-point gap with 1 race to go. The fastest pit stop battle, we've also seen a change. Red Bull 1-2 as always, 2-3, 2-4 for their stops. We had a 2-5 and a 2-6, good enough for 6th and 9th on the day, and good enough to score 10 points and overtake Alpine by 5 with 1 race to go for 4th in the fastest pit stop battle. There is money involved in that, so that's a good thing. It's not just about helping our races out. Florsch's overall rating is now improved to a 68.
The season draws to a close here with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. A long season has led us around the world over all this year's races to get here. The last chance to settle the season. in the final round. There's a reason why the Yas Marina circuit is used as a test track. The long straights put engine power through its paces, while the twists and bends make medium speed downforce just as important at this challenging circuit. In the last round, Max Verstappen flew to victory, the Dutchman proving that he can be absolutely unstoppable when he's in such fight.
I thought I had nerfed things pretty well heading into this last race, but Florsch almost gets to Q2 with a 16th qualifying position ahead of the Alfa Romeos and the Haas cars. And Logan Sargent, for the first time on merit in his final race for Williams, qualifies on pole. He did not get there in either of the first two sessions. In fact, the first session, he was a good 6/10 off the front of the grid and, maybe 8th or 9th from the look of things. He was a little bit better in Q2, but not much. So where that lap came from, I have no idea. Where he pulled out a 1:23.1, which was good enough for almost a full 10th of a second over Charles Leclerc. But okay, starting from pole, needing to go backwards. Lando Norris qualifies 4th, but is carrying a penalty, and Magnussen 13th. To start this one. No penalty for him. Let's hope that the Lando Norris penalty is very minor indeed, so he's set to go. Sargent should not be running anywhere near the front, but one lap pace seems to ignore the condition of the parts. I don't know if that's actually the case during the race. They really seem to take it into account, and the fact that he's down to a 40% roughly engine and ERS and about a 35% gearbox should just about nerf him enough to help drop him down the order, and we will absolutely take matters into our hand as long as Norris is capable of scoring points today to make sure that we finish outside of the points or at least behind Norris.
Only 58 laps stand between the drivers and the checkered flag here under the lights at the Yas Marina circuit. Logan Sargent, definitely one to keep an eye on today.
They start in P1, but will they be able to stay there? The first corner could be so crucial.
This should certainly be a good one, folks. Hold on tight. It's the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Final race of the season, final race for Sargent with Williams. What can he do today? He's starting from pole, his first one on merit. And we have a red flag. We have a red flag right off the bat. No idea who has been involved. As it happened straight off the line, it should be back to starting order. Oh, it happened right in front of Florsch. What the heck? What the heck happened with the Alpine? They just came to a dead stop right in front of her. Just a little lockup. And wow. Grid position on restart is second, so they are putting us out there second. They're keeping the order as it was, even though they literally only went a single corner. The Alpine Gasly is out of the race as well. No surprise that they're out. Surprise that Florsch is out, but the chassis was damaged in that crash. And here we go again. Base cam's already on, so we'll just continue with it. We're going to have to tell Sargent to... Nope, they stay aggressive. Off the line. But now seemingly down to P3 as the Aston Martin got the run on us. Remember, reactions are not great for Sargent, so Sargent is often... Magnussen picks up a penalty from that incident. For what? Did they touch the Alpine? With the extra formation laps, the red flag coming back in slowly, and then the formation lap to go out. That's 2 extra laps that we're going to be able to run a little bit longer on the softs, push a little bit harder on the hards and mediums as we continue on with our 2-stop strategy of a soft, hard, medium for the day. And we're running at the front, and we're pulling away from Verstappen, who's pulling away from Pourchaire in 5th. It's Stroll and Verstappen 3-4. Pourchaire, Russell, Tsunoda, Bottas all close. Norris currently just P5 for him, and Magnussen is down to P18. carrying damage, apparently, well off the pace. Has not served the penalty yet. So that's day ruined. And oh, look how few cars came back out on the softs, which means we're going to be pitting much earlier than some of the others, which could offset our strategy, and we will absolutely park it if we have to, as long as Norris is in place to earn the points necessary. At the moment, we are set to gain 18 points. McLaren just 1. That's what we got to keep an eye on. We've got to nerf those 18 for one thing, which would bring us down to 49. That's not right. It's double points for last race. No, we don't have double points for last race. I don't understand the math here. We were not 19 points ahead of McLaren. Last race, we managed to only gain a single point. Again, Magnussen's day is totally ruined. Norris still runs P10. It's lap 18 of 58 at the moment. Leclerc's pulling away. Verstappen, Stroll are coming back at us. Down pit road for the penultimate time this season. Now, both for Sargent and for the team as a whole, with Florsch out of the race. 2.596 for the stop. It's a pretty decent one. And I don't know if and when we're going to need to start nerfing to give us a chance for Norris to overtake us. But I'm, at this point, incredibly confused that there's some sort of error, there's some sort of mistake, because it's only a 4-point advantage. There shouldn't be that massive gap. It's showing that we're almost 20 points ahead of McLaren, and where did those points come from? Here again with the new updated on us having just pit and being out of the points for the time being, shows us sitting on 149. Very strange. Don't understand it, but that puts McLaren 14 points behind, scoring 6 today. And we need Norris to finish 8th or above, and we need to be out of the points, which we'll be happy to do. I could easily intentionally retire the car to stop the points if necessary, if it puts Norris at 8th or better. But last I checked, we had the tiebreaker, so that means in reality we're going to need Norris to be 7th or better, which is where he stands at the moment. But we've already pit, and others have not. Bottas has already pit. Gio has already pit. I feel like we could get a pretty dang good result today if we wanted it, but we don't. Mr. McLaren lives on. Like I said, retiring the car might be the better option, so in the meantime I'm sort of wanting to be aggressive with Sargent and see where he can run before we then say, nope, see you later, goodbye, no points. All over the back of Maloney right now. This is familiar territory from last race. And now we've got a wide number of cars pitting up to P7. Norris still out there. Leclerc now pits. Verstappen, Porsche, Norris. Verstappen decides to pit. Lap 27 already. 2 that are still out there going. Now remember, we already had a red flag. A lot of cars did change strategy at that point, changed their compounds for the restart. We came out the same, and he did not. Leclerc has overtaken Norris for P2. We're definitely off the back in comparison. Let's go ahead and check in on how certain strategies are looking at this point. As Porsche going long on the hards, Norris is going long on the hards. Leclerc, Stroll, us all on the hards. Bottas on the softs. Verstappen, Russell, Tsunoda are all on the hards. Could somebody like Verstappen try to go the distance? Probably not. Seems a bit too far out. They'll probably just go to softs on their last stint. Gio Zhou will pit soon. Perez looking to go the distance, or at least a while yet. Ocon, Albon will pit sooner rather than later. And then Norris is hanging in there at P3, but he's got a pit stop coming relatively soon. But it could and should be his last, so he might yet be up into a virtual P3. Leclerc went around Porsche. He's into the race lead. Let's see how far off pace Magnussen is. He's nearly a lap down, running 40 seconds behind anybody else. He's got a huge gap. He will not score points today. It's entirely up to Norris, who Porsche has gotten around, so Norris is P4 for the time being. And of course, we're right there with him in that battle, but I'm happy to see him running well. But he is very much towards the end of this stint, and his pace is suffering. Hopefully he'll pit soon. But with 25 laps to go, what's he going to do? What does he have left? Let's hope he's got mediums, and those mediums make it to the end, and that he will be making his final stop here shortly. To what end? There it is. Norris stops. Porsche stops. Norris comes back out in traffic in the middle of the back train, just outside of the points train. So coming out in the middle of that, he's going to have some overtaking to do. Yes! Oh, what luck! A bunch of those guys just got out of his way. Now it's just Bottas, and that's an easy one, right? You get DRS. You're going to have the advantage. He's at the end of his stint. You should get an easy overtake on Bottas, and that's going to really help Norris out. He's already got around him, P10. Now with clean air to run, and now checking the compound. Checking the compound. It is mediums. He will go the distance. So Norris, good to go the distance. We're not. Like, we have got to pit again. How many of the guys around me will end up pitting again, though? Gio obviously is going to pit very soon. So there's Norris to P8. We're going, to P9. We are going to get out of the way here at some point. That's P8. So Norris in a pretty strong position. It's already our optimal lap to pit. Let's go ahead and go aggressive. Heat these things up. Get a couple more laps out of them before we switch. Again, I will park it if I have to. I will take an extra pit stop. That's probably the easier thing to do. And let him finish to make sure that we do not steal the points away from Norris. As things stand, Leclerc has lapped Magnussen and pulled away. Stroll, clear number 2. Verstappen, though, has come on pretty strong, is up to P3. Sonoda is P4. We are P5 with Russell just behind us. We've got a little 3-car trade here. Norris is not that far back. Already up to P9. Gio pit, that was not an on-track pass. He's already down to 75. Man, that happened fast. What the heck? Did he have an instant? Or has time just gone by that quickly? We might choose to go back out on softs instead of mediums to give it a run. Especially if I'm going to give it an extra pit stop at the end. But we need Norris to be a bit higher up. Right now, virtual P8 for him is not enough. Perez, Sainz, Russell. Like, none of those on the hards are looking great, but they're looking better than us. Just don't like how quickly things are wearing for Norris. That's the worry. That is the worry. Yes, tires are overheating. That's fine. That is fine. We are pitting very soon. I think we're going to give it a single more lap, and then we will switch it out. Yeah, look how that tire wear did not degrade very fast. Perez stops. There we go. It's starting. It's starting. These guys are having another pit. Let's just hope that Norris does not. Otherwise, he will literally sabotage himself as he makes the overtake on Sainz. He's up to P7. Not even virtual, and we're about to pit last time around. 68% for Norris. Please, oh please, let those tires hang on and do not pit. Norris, do not pit. He's almost lapped his teammate. Sargent getting ready to head into the pits. Comes down pit road. Final time this season, unless we take that oops pit at the end. Oops, we lost our position. We return to track in P10 with Norris in P6. That would be enough if we were to stay here. But I have a feeling others will pit with 10 laps to go. Norris, 6-second gap ahead of him. 1 second gap behind him. Just about a train with Sainz and Porsche trying to keep up. Meanwhile, we've got Gio trying to keep up with us. He's recently set the fastest lap. He's on the soft. Ooh. Technically, he just got into us there, but nothing happened. According to this, McLaren scores 8. We score 1. They've got us at 150. But again, that doesn't make sense. That is not the gap. That is not what we had. It was a 4-point gap behind us, or between us, and he's outscoring us by 7. Right now, this would already do it. This would be enough. we wouldn't have to nerf. Ocon runs wide, turn 3. I'm so nervous for Norris here. He's got 2 guys right on his tail. Then again, Sainz overtakes Norris. He doesn't have that 60% advantage anymore. Those mediums are wearing. That's 7th. 6 and 1 would be a 5-point advantage, though. They would finish 1 point ahead of us if our calculations were correct and their calculations wrong, but Sargent has caught Bottas. And we do not want that overtake here in the final laps. Just slow it down, Spud. Slow it down. 10th is okay. Norris is still 6th. Sainz is now the only one behind him and 6/10ths back. And Porsche has rejoined ahead of us, and we are losing some ground on them. This should be enough on paper. I don't know what was going on with that. I'm freaking out that I missed something, but when and where, right? We've seen the points many times. When and where would we have gained those points? It's got to be wrong. Gosh, we're coming up so fast on Bottas there. No matter how slow we're trying to drive. The last 2 laps of the season, folks. And right now, the math should be right. Norris is 6th. Again, that's back to 8 points gained. He was 7th. A 7-point swing is enough. Even if we score 2, a 6-point swing is enough. If the 4-point gap was the reality. Where they think we got all these extra points from, I do not know. Drive slow to not overtake these guys. Sainz closing up, but should not be able to overtake anywhere the rest of the way. Leclerc has taken the win in the final race. Stroll has taken 2nd. Verstappen takes 3rd. Tsunoda, AlphaTauri about to grab 4th place. Russell grabs 5th, and Norris will take 6th. He scores 8 points. Sainz 7th. We will not overtake these guys. We have 10th on paper. That should be enough. This screen freaking me the F out, saying we're 13 points ahead. Where did those points come from? I do not know. Hopefully that's a bug, and that we are back to where we belong. And that is finishing the season in 7th place. Mission McLaren should have been a success. Should have. Moment of a truth. 8 points. Lando Norris, 1 point. Logan Sargent. No other McLarens, no other Williams in the points today. In the drivers, which does not matter. That's 139 for Sargent. That is 153 for Logan Sargent. 14 points ahead. 14 ahead. However, each team has another driver. And we got 2 points from Flourish. That's 16. Magnussen has 18. In the constructors, there it is, by 2 points. And that thing was a glitch. It was not counting Magnussen's points. Was it not counting Flourish's either because they were out of the race? We've done it. By 2 points, folks. Mission McLaren succeeds, and we finish 7th. Again, final time that I reiterate this thing. You are nerfing the expectations. They expected us to finish 7th. We finished 7th. Next season, expectations will not rise significantly higher. The car is quick, but we're a team that took 7th. We should have reasonable expectations next year, even if it's 6th. That's okay. Reasonable expectations. The other driver can push a lot harder. He's not going to be as good. Last couple of races, though, man. Oh, man, did AlphaTauri come on strong last couple of races as they brought new developments to the car. But, of course, there are changes, and it's not too minor. We're talking about 30% low-speed downforce decrease. And, yes, we have some research projects, but not a ton. Will we still be the fastest, or are we going to drop down a little bit to start the next season? Maybe. We'll see. But we're going to keep pumping out projects as long as we can, and certainly into the start of next year. In the drivers, Logan Sargent will finish the season up as the 7th place driver in the Drivers' Championship with Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell. And, of course, it's that 2-3 finish by the Ferrari pair that has put them on top, as Sainz only gets 6th place. Bottas, Stroll, 4th and 5th, with Sargent being the next guy. Norris jumps to 8th, getting ahead of Gasly on the tiebreaker with the podiums. In fact, both of them have had 2 podiums. Alpine really faded at the end of the season. No points today for Gasly, just 2 for Bottas. Does that mean they've focused on research for next year? Or did they have other things going on? Because Alpine, I think in the end, had we not been nerfing Sargent, had we been going for it, giving it our all, getting the most we could out of him. Obviously, the 2 points we had for Flourish, her 9th place finish, that was it. That's all she had. We did not do anything to nerf her. We could have taken another penalty or 2 over the season to keep her components fresh. And maybe, just maybe, that would have meant she had gotten into the points one more time at some stage in the season. Right? She didn't always have the best components. So we did a little bit to nerf her unintentionally. In reality, though, I think her one time in the points was about it. Next season, I'll expect her to get into the points a couple of times, because she's going to continue to improve. I'm hoping to have a good car, and obviously she's still that primary driver. But it's the other driver who's coming in who we're going to expect to be at the tail end of the top 10 frequently and be competitive for us to keep our job. Because there could be a worry without Sargent, right? Sargent easily could have done better. How much better? In theory, obviously we easily beat McLaren if we're not nerfing. I think we easily beat Mercedes if we are not nerfing. So worst case scenario would have been P5. As for Aston Martin and Alpine, they were quick. We were competitive with them. We were faster than them. Had we not nerfed the parts for Sargent, had we not intentionally lost some positions here and there, I think it would have been a 3-way battle, and I think it would have been awfully close. Could we have beaten Alpine? Maybe. On Sargent alone? Difficult. I think we would have had enough points to beat Aston Martin, most likely. My guess is we would have finished 4th. Maybe we would have been just 5th. Maybe we would have been at 300 or 290. Obviously, we would have taken some more points away from them with some better finishes had we not nerfed ourselves. Hard to say exactly, hard to speculate, but it certainly would have been in that 3, 4, 5 range. I would guess probably 4th. I think Alpine might have had enough to beat us. He would have beaten each of the Alpine drivers like we would have beat Bottas. We did beat Gasly, but Gasly's 139 versus the 2 for Flourish. That 137 points would have been the difference. I think Sargent could have had enough to compete with Russell and been there or thereabouts. He would have been 3rd or 4th in the championship this season. And that's the thing. A driver who was in 80-something with a car that was just about the best would have been not winning. I don't think he would have gotten the 444. I think we could have won a race this season, but I think we would have been just fighting for about 3rd. It's a lot harder than last year. Last year, F1 Manager 22, Sargent would have won this championship. The game was easy enough to do. It's harder this year. It's definitely harder this year. It's going to make the task of getting Flourish the championship that much harder, because how high is she ever going to get? We're going to get her into the 70s, but I don't know if we're going to get her anywhere near an 80 ever. We did hang on to 4th in the DHL fastest pit stop rankings behind McLaren. Ferrari and Red Bull, by the way. Just the one today, so it was a little bit harder, but that one was good enough for 4th and 12 points. Mid-November, so we still have the December turnover. We've got 30 million right now. We're going to add a little bit more with the turnover, but of course we're going to work on some upgrades. But the research projects for the end of the year already going. I might be able to squeeze one more in. I have a project that finishes up in about a week and a half. We're going to try to get one more research project in with full team of engineers on that, but otherwise the research projects have already started for the remainder of this calendar year. Of course, January 1st, we will kick off a whole new set of projects, and we'll get an idea where the car is at that point. I know that we are nowhere near covering off the 30% lost in low speed corners. The 20% in medium speed is definitely not covered off either, but we're going to be closer to that one. The 10% loss in high speed, I think we'll have that covered off. And then we're going to have other gains in other areas that aren't losing anything. So all in all, I'd say we're offsetting. We're improving the high speed, we're improving other areas, and we're offsetting the medium speed But we will take a little bit of a loss in low speed. But of course, everybody's losing that 30% as well. But we're first in that area, so we're losing the most. Will we still have the quickest car? Hard to say. Facilities are getting better and better, though, so improvement is getting better. Our staff is getting better. But we may not start the year number 1. I think at worst, though, we're starting the year number 2. Red Bull is Red Bull. And Red Bull seemed to let things go at the end of the season here. They went from a comfortable number 1 in the constructors to being overtaken and beaten by Ferrari, who seemed to be focusing on this year's car. And maybe that was Red Bull doing a lot of research for next year. So if that was the case, I would expect Red Bull to come out the strongest. They've got the best in everything, and they're starting from a really good place. And if they've been preparing for a while, then it should pay off to their advantage. Ferrari and Red Bull are going to be hard to compete with next season, but if we push real hard, if we can consistently get enough to almost battle with that 3-4 kind of position like we did, we might be able to comfortably be P5. And if the requirements are P6, then we could be in for an easy year. But Florsch is closing in on that 70 as we approach this season to a conclusion. Of course, we're going to still have our December turnover, but she just leveled up from a 67 to a 68, so she will finish this year as a 68. Getting better, but a ways to go yet. And we're going to start splitting that difference, meaning she may be a little bit closer, because the driver coming in, I think, is a 74. We're dropping 10 points off. It's going to be quite a bit of pace, so we're going to have to push hard to be successful, because we've already seen that at a 68 or a 67 previously, right? We have a car that's only managed to score points once, even though we had a car very capable of scoring points this season. She's competitive finally, but competitive at the back end of the grid. A 74 is going to be higher up, but how much higher up, right? Are we going to be scraping by for 9th and 10th place every race? Could be the case. We could be finishing 8th in the constructors next year as things stand. I think we're going to easily beat whoever the back of the grid is, whether that's Alfa Romeo and Haas again, but I don't think we're going to be horribly competitive in the midfield next year. Could be a tough year. Could be a please keep your job kind of year. But we have so much high confidence entering that it's going to be hard for that to go away. It's going to take a couple bad years to really see it. I mean, like Gunther Steiner, right? How many years of mediocrity for Haas did it take for him to finally lose his position? Not really his fault, though, when they don't invest and they don't produce the parts themselves, right? But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode and this season. Next season, our next episode, we're going to get through all the off-season stuff and hopefully the first race of the year. That's the plan, unless we have an off-season special, one episode off, but I'd like to get that first race in at least. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.